welcome here to the Gamma Project. We're about to chat about the banner mentorship here with Grant, all the way from in South Africa, down at the coast. He's living the dream. Absolutely loving the Natal Coast. Natal Coast is great. Grant, welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so week one on the banner mentorship, and just a few questions for you.
Of course.
It feels like the only thing I know now is high blood sugar creates acidity, and that's a problem. I need to know, like,
that's a good start, though. That's basically the basis of where everything else can go a little bit wrong, or correct things to go right. So it's a good place that a good place to start.
Yeah. So, what is the main objective of week one? What do I need to know, like, after week one? Basically, just in a nutshell.
Okay. In a nutshell, what you need to know are the biochemical reactions that occur from elevated levels of blood sugar and how they will impact endocrine function from as basic, well, it's not really basic, but in terms of the material that we learned, from as basic as regulating insulin sensitivity and cortisol modulation to the more complex.
Okay, so the outcome of week one is to understand biochemistry. Is that correct?
Biochemistry's role, well, not the biochemistry as a whole, because my lord, that is a subject matter.
No.
But the biochemistry's role in regulating blood sugar and its effect that it would have on endocrine function.
Okay, that's helping me already.
Okay, good. Okay.
And endocrine is basically the hormone system.
That's correct. Yes, your hormonal regulation systems.
Yeah. So all hormones are part of your endocrine system.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. Perfect. Then that's to do with insulin, which I find confusing. I know what insulin does.
Okay,
in layman's terms.
Let's start there. So I think the best way to learn, which is the reason why I like the 10 questions, the 10 things you've learned, which we're going to go over on Saturday before we actually start the second week's mentorship, is just to assess what your understanding is and then to build up on it, or to break down things that might be a little bit off.
Yeah.
So what do you understand insulin to be?
So insulin is a hormone. When you eat food, it gets released by the pancreas. Its job and its functions to open the gateway for the cell to absorb nutrients.
Okay.
Is that correct?
So, yes, it's correct in a certain light. It's not really insulin's job to. Insulin is the key, so it does open up a gateway, but it's not the direct gateway. Just remember, there are other systems at play that will allow for the cell to be more receptive for nutrient absorption. And that sensitivity toward insulin regulates how well insulin may do its job for nutrients to actually come into the cell in the first place. But insulin is released when blood sugar hits a certain level. And tell me, Grant, why do you think that it does that? Why do you think that insulin is, in essence, a regulatory hormone for blood sugar management?
To take it out of the bloodstream, because too much blood sugar in the bloodstream causes a whole lot of problems.
Exactly. So to rid the body of excessive unwanted blood sugar and to enable storage of energy and nutrients for later use or for homeostatic balance.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Now,
there was a couple.
Now, I have a question to pose to you. on that. So with insulin, if insulin helps to regulate the disposal of elevated blood sugar, what regulates the release?
That's glucagon.
Glucagon. All right. And that's right. Glucagon does aid to regulate the release. But what would it regulate the release apart from glucagon? If you were to think about when this is taken one step further back, when do we need a release of energy?
When we exerting ourselves, when we moving.
Perfect. And what would regulate that release when we're moving?
ATP.
That's the energy. That's the energy byproduct. So that's the actual energy itself that allows for movement to occur. But what would regulate the release to the subsequent outcome of ATP production? Not glucagon, but catecholamines.
Catecholamines. Okay. This is what I wanted to basically chat to you about. Is I can go section by section, but I want to see how they all link up.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm
like
here for.
Dopamine and blood sugar and like how does it all link?
We'll get through some of it, but just remember, like that just because you're on the mentorship for a certain period of time doesn't mean you can't reach out and we build up on more of it. So I think what we're going to do today to get your understanding, let's cover the role that catecholamines and anabolic hormones like insulin may have toward energy production and energy storage, right? And what other regulating hormones might influence that. Before we start getting into neurotransmitters and everything else, like it's great that we learn and you like the mentorship is only 3 hours at max along at a time, and to learn all this in 3 hours is a lot. So I don't expect you guys to, but that's also a reason why having the Zoom calls is so important. So if you guys at any point doing a mentorship, like if we get to week 3 and we're covering a different topic, it's fine. If you still don't understand something in week 1, there's no time frame. We can ask me questions. You can ask.
That's what because obviously my incident set me back a bit, and only really recovering today, back on my feet. So what I thought of doing, without placing any more stress on myself, is I've been making some notes and I've gone through week 1, but I'm gonna kind of revisit week 1 as we go through. But from Saturday, I'm going to put my heart and soul into that topic and try and learn as much as I can in that one. Do you know what I mean? And then just revisit this whole section later.
Exactly, and that's what it's for. It's just remember, as the mentorship evolves, there are being new new pieces of information that I would add to the mentorship as well, because there's continuing new research being developed and coming out the whole time, which I'm a part of. So it's never going to be the same. So you're always going to learn, which is nice because there's never an end goal. There's no end goal to it. It's just to be able to utilize the understanding for your business. So what you can take from it and make your clients get better results and make yourself get better results to go in training.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm excited.
Okay, so let's track it back for a second. So I would like to ask you a question. So what releases energy for the production of ATP, the release in the body?
Dopamine?
Catecholamines.
Catecholamines, but isn't dopamine a catecholamine?
No. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter which can create the release of catecholamines, which is a instigator to the release of catecholamines.
Jeez. Okay, so catecholamines are adrenal hormones.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so norepinephrine and epinephrine are catecholamines.
And what is the final, once you've released norepinephrine and epinephrine through its natural metabolic process, what other hormone will subsequently be released through prolonged release of norepinephrine and epinephrine?
Cortisol.
Exactly.
Stress.
Yeah. Well, it's all stress. That's why stress is actually really good for you if it's controlled, because stress helps to release energy through sources like fat, but it's not so good when it releases energy from sources like muscle. So it's not about saying you want to take stress out. If you take stress out of the equation, you're also not going to be in a good, healthy position. So you want a good balance of everything. You don't want to take insulin out either, because that's also not going to be healthy at all. Actually, it will cause you to die. So,
Well, that diabetes,
yeah, exactly. So it's about regulating the system so they become more proficient in their function.
Yeah.
Okay, shoot. Now, what would you like to ask me?
Right. So, insulin resistance. Okay. I've been trying to obviously do like the research I have done. They say that insulin resistance is is insulin, the body just isn't using it. How is that all linked?
It comes down to the receptors on the cell's sensitivity toward the hormone insulin. So let's give you an analogy. If you had, say you had a door, and the door had 5 locks in order to open its entry and toward the next room, right? And those 5 locks were functioning efficiently, right? You would be able to, through interaction of those 5 locks, open the door and access what you need to, right? Which is like nucleic acid release towards genetic outcomes, toward other metabolic outcomes, mitochondrial increase of function, you name it. All right, so then we get really complex once we get into like the reactions within the cell. But insulin resistance is when all of a sudden those locks, 2 of those locks, aren't working as well as what they should. And now the key, i.e. the insulin, has to be taken back to the factory, and a new and bigger version of it needs to be produced in order to open up that same lock.
So if I think what will help me understand better is if I take it back to the cell.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm trying to connect hormones and how they, obviously there's a reaction, am I right?
There is, yes.
Okay. Like if I go and push the button, the TV will come on. Like, what is insulin?
Insulin is your finger.
The finger, okay.
And the button is the receptor.
Okay, so insulin creates a response with the cell for the cell to do something.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm understanding a lot better now.
Exactly.
Okay,
Perfect.
I thought. Okay, so then that response from insulin reacting with the cell is then to open up the door to absorb nutrients.
Exactly.
The receptor on the cell can't react with the insulin because there's been too much of it all the time. So it's gotten.
Yeah, it's like, so let's take back the TV analogy. So if you go and you're going to go push the TV on and off the whole time.
Yeah.
Eventually, the transmission through the button of the TV is going to be dwindled.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to eventually.
So then,
yeah. So you're going to have to like find either another source.
Huh? That's a good one.
That's a very good
That's
one.
a good analogy. The button breaks and your finger needs a bigger insulin, and then you're punching the button.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or you have to like take your finger, go around the back and short circuit the TV to come back on. Right? Which is that's like type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to. Okay. All right.
So type 2 diabetes is you'll utilize a drug called metformin for type 2 diabetes, and metformin is basically a glucose dumping agent. So it causes the body to reduce the amount of blood sugar dramatically without the required need of insulin.
Jeez, that's
hectic. But in doing that, it puts a hell of a lot of stress on the kidneys, a ton of stress on the liver, and it also depletes certain methylators that aid the process, like in particular B12 and folate levels deplete drastically with metformin use.
So you have to supplement those things then?
If you're using metformin, most definitely. But the the better outcome would be to not have to use a metformin and get your systems rebooted to be able to handle that press on the button not as frequently.
Okay, this is good. So insulin resistance is the cell is not reacting with insulin as it should.
Exactly. The receptor of the cell, not the cell, not the cell, but the cell's receptors. Exactly. And the same thing, you have like different receptors for androgens as well, for muscle growth. They create a certain effect on DNA, so nucleic acids.
Yeah. Nucleic acid is DNA.
Well, nucleic acids forms part of RNA and DNA.
Okay, so should I go and...
So if you think about ribonucleic acid, and I think it's deoxyribose nucleic acid as well.
So DNA is something nucleic acid?
Yes, exactly.
Shit.
Exactly. And RNA, so it's, we'll look it over here. So it is DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. And if you think about the ribose, what is ribose?
T.
No, not ribose. Not ribose.
No, I'm joking. Isn't it vitamin B? Some type of vitamin B? No.
It is. Yep. What vitamin B?
I don't know, man. B6? Take a guess.
No, not B6.
Fuck, one of them. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I would like you to go research ribose and figure out exactly what B vitamin that is for me.
Cool. Yeah, this is good. Even if I get some tips on what to go research, it'll help a lot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. And then RNA is...
Yeah.
What is RNA? Ribonucleic acid.
Ribonucleic acid. Okay, awesome. Right. Now, how much time do we have? Not too much, eh?
Not too much, no. It's actually ribose is a carbohydrate, but however, riboflavin is a B vitamin that has its attachment to a carbohydrate. The reason why riboflavin and niacin actually aid the citric acid cycle in allowing for more lactic acid metabolism to further energy production.
I see. Okay.
Right. But
right.
Yeah, so we have, so think about it, it's a nucleic acid reaction. And nucleic acids obviously will contain certain, well, it's amino acids in essence, that create a cause and effect on our genes to create a type of transcription toward a given output.
Okay, awesome. Now, our whole body's made of cells, okay? I'm just taking it back to basics.
No, it's not made of any cells. It is made of cells, but not just human cells.
Okay.
What do we have?
In terms of the endocrine system, though. In terms of the endocrine system, would hormones affect cells only, or do they affect other things?
No, they affect other things too. If you think about the reaction that cortisol will have on glucose.
Okay.
So cortisol will create the release of the glucose into the system. So it won't only affect the cell, but it will also affect the entire pH state of our bodies as well. All the available energy.
Okay, so cortisol releases glucose from the cell, though?
Yeah.
Into the body. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of what I'm trying to wrap my head around now. So I want to start somewhere, understand the basics, and then look at what happens once those things happen. You know what I mean?
So,
It makes any
in a
sense.
nutshell, hormones are catalysts to reactions of keys of receptors on cells.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, just make a note of that. Catalysts
Yes.
to
They create a cause and reaction. Sorry, not create a cause, they create a reaction. The cause can come from multiple factors that allow for the release of hormones to occur in the first place, most notably through the central nervous system. But the peripheral has a role to play in the central nervous system's reaction to release of hormones.
Brilliant. Then I wanted to talk to you about what got me confused is this SHBG, 6 hormone binding globulin. That's the hormone, right?
G6PD.
No, that's the SHBG.
SHB1AC?
It just says 6 binding.
Okay. Okay, 6 hormone binding globulin. Yes.
Yeah, is that just a hormone?
Is it?
I don't know. Is it a hormone?
Is it? I don't know. Does it sound 6 hormone binding globulin?
6 binding. Yeah, the name confuses me already. Like, what is it binding to?
Is it a hormone, or is it something that binds to a hormone?
Something that's binding to something, so it's binding to a hormone. Regulates the control of testosterone, free testosterone, in correlation to estrogen. So it's what is it?
It's a protein.
Okay.
That binds, that will cause a binding of certain sex hormones, not just androgens, but also estrogens, for within the body itself.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that was confusing, because that's also how insulin's involved with that too.
Mm-hmm. So if sex hormone binding globulin levels are elevated, what hormone will be influenced that will enable better reaction to carbohydrate metabolism?
If it's
an excessive amount of it, there will be aromatization occurring in the body.
That's estrogen. Too much estrogen.
Too little? No. Too little estrogen can also be just as detrimental. You must remember, it depends on the type of estrogen. So if you have over an abundance of E4 or E16 estrogen, it will deplete levels of E2 estrogen. Now, E2 estrogen is responsible for the active levels of glucose 6-phosphodehydrogenase. And G6PD is involved in the energy cycle when glucokinase is being released through an energy need during activity. And without enough G6PD being active, glucokinase will not cause as much of a reaction toward the production of ATP through the mediated release of glucose. Okay, so so in other words, too little estrogen is just as bad for you as too much. Too much SHBG will also lower androgens, but also may lower E2 levels of estrogen. And that will negatively impact your ability to metabolize carbohydrates effectively for energy, which will cause your body to release an abundance of more than what it should do for
insulin.
energy.
Cortisol, insulin.
Catecholamines.
Mm-hmm. So I see. Now I'm starting to see a pattern, and that is running on adrenals instead of running on proper energy. Of course. It's like running on fake energy, and then you're depleting your adrenal glands. This is very important, eh?
Very, very important. If you deregulate your hormonal systems by either inducing too much stress through exercise, through diet, lifestyle, environment, pollution, whatever it might be, you're going to deplete the efficiency of energy production and storage, which will cause the body to go into a state of stress, increase inflammation, reduce circulation, and inevitably cause you to become more resistant to your natural homeostatic point. So your homeostatic point will shift, and when your homeostatic point shifts, then so too will ailments and metabolic disorders come about, like diabetes, heart disease, poor androgen profile, menopause will be set on a lot quicker as well.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot, like you say, it's a lot to try and take in, eh? You think I'll understand it a lot better as we go along?
You will, because
Or is this,
you're
huh?
going to keep asking questions and you keep making calls. That's why I say it's
Yeah.
imperative. Like the 3-hour mentorship is there to give you a good idea, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not like, how many courses have you been on, Grant? And you come out of it, you learn something, but there's so many things that you've forgotten.
Yeah, that's what I feel like's happening now. Like you say something and I understand it, and then I forget about it.
Well, this is why it's a mentorship rather than a course, because there is no end to it. It's ongoing. So I don't expect you to know everything off like a 3-hour window. Oh, now Grant knows everything. Go write a thesis on.
Jeepers.
No.
You know what I want to nail like in this call, if we can, just quickly, is you said something about how your body doesn't use carbohydrates properly, and then the body becomes stressed and uses adrenals and then becomes inflamed. I want to try and understand that a bit better, because that is 99% of the world, basically. Hey?
It is. Okay.
It is.
So if your body, if you, all right, let's go back again to insulin. Insulin stores energy, and catecholamines release energy.
Okay, I'm going to make notes while we go. Insulin stores.
And catecholamines release.
And catecholamines release energy.
Energy, right.
Okay, that's step 1. Okay, got it.
Over use of insulin,
yes,
will dysregulate how much energy can be stored and will increase how much blood sugar is present. Grant?
yes.
Don't worry about taking notes now, because what we're going to do, after the video is done, I'm going to send it to you.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah? That's all right. That's all right.
I'm in a state of stress, can you tell? I want to know. So let's go back. Okay.
You know what? Don't rush the educational process. There's so many things out there that I'm still learning. You guys are far more intelligent than I am. And if you try to overwhelm yourself by knowing everything now, you won't learn anything at all. So just take what you can.
I know. Okay, so overuse of insulin will deregulate the
energy storage, effective
energy
storage, and will increase the amount of blood sugar present in one's physiology. An increase of blood sugar causes blood to become sticky, which impairs processing of things like triglycerides and cholesterol, right, which affects the cardiovascular system as well as the endocrine system.
Okay.
Right. Now, once the cardiovascular system and endocrine system are affected, that also cause a deregulation of certain hormones, in particular, deregulation of thyroid functioning hormones and estrogen, healthy estrogen-based hormones, which will impact glucose metabolism. And androgens will also impact cortisol sensitivity too. So low androgens means your body.
Androgens, testosterone.
Yes, testosterone is an androgen. Yep. You also can have DHT is another one as well. So
okay.
androgens can be negatively impacted by dysfunction because of excessive blood sugar. And excessive blood, it's an impairment of androgens will cause your body to become less cortisol sensitive, which means it has to produce more cortisol in order to get the same effect of cortisol that it would have had from less production prior to a dysfunctional androgen system. Too little E2 estrogen and too much unwanted E4, which comes through aromatization, or E16, which comes from environmental pollution, will cause your body to become deregulated to glucose metabolism for energy. And it all comes down to too much blood sugar. And too much blood sugar comes down to overuse of insulin. And that can be caused from many.
And that's the start of the shit. And then your body becomes acidic as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And when your body becomes acidic, in essence, your neurons will become hyperpolarized.
That's where hyperpolarized comes into it. When you're too acidic, you're hyperpolarized.
And then that will cause your muscle tissue to become hypertonic.
Too tense.
Mm-hmm.
So hypertonicity is a bad thing because you're too tense.
Exactly. Yeah. So excessive tone. So if you think about the word hyper, meaning excess, and tonicity, tone. So an excessive amount of tone regulating through the body.
That's why stressed people get tense and tight.
Exactly. Back pain, neck pain, toe pain, any kind of pain. Yeah. So back to glucose regulating hormones. How do we address the problem? We look at the reaction the nervous system is having on food and the environment. Okay, the nervous system is having a bad reaction to food. So in other words, either an excessive IgG response or a detrimental IgE response. The body will release an abundance of white blood cells to create a defense against any kind of threat. Now that abundance of white blood cells will cause inflammation, which will further compound excessive blood sugar and cause the body's blood to become even more sticky. In other words, the rivers that flowed freely become the swamps that fester.
Yes, and it's just a chain reaction the whole time.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So it's very important to become cortisol sensitive, meaning you require less cortisol to create energy, and become insulin sensitive, meaning that you require less insulin to absorb energy. So the more deregulated your cortisol insulin systems become, the more dysfunctional your health will become as well. Not to mention your ability to train hard, to sleep well, to live well.
And then understanding how glucagon fits into this whole thing, because insulin reacts with the cell. Does cortisol have an effect and release glucagon to react with the cell? Is that what cortisol does?
Is mediated through its release and control with the central nervous system. So glucagon is kind of like the traffic warden that basically will manage levels of blood sugar. So it's not necessarily released due to stressful environments, like through release, or when you become stressed and heightenedly aware, you have a huge amount of excitatory neurotransmitters that may be released in the brain. And the cause and effect of that would be a heightened adrenal response. But glucagon is regulated more through the thalamus and would regulate its function through maintaining a healthy pH throughout the body, or trying to maintain a healthy pH throughout the body. But your glucagon can become rather impaired rather quickly if your body is constantly releasing adrenal hormones due to being in an unwarranted state of stress.
Okay, getting it.
So in other words, when you chill, your body will release glucagon to regulate glucose output, and insulin to regulate glucose input. But when you are not chill, and you're stressed, that glucagon becomes like completely switched, not completely switched off, but becomes override by more dominant, like energy releasing hormones.
Like epinephrine and all that type of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. So does glucagon allow a bit of sugar to go back into the bloodstream?
Yes.
And insulin takes sugar out the bloodstream.
Yes.
And that's how they work together.
The seesaw.
Okay.
Why does it do that? The $1 million question.
For energy.
For what part of the body that can't store energy?
This is such the external part, the brain.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Energy. So that's why we regulate the release and uptake of blood sugar throughout our body, so they can access enough oxygen and enough ATP through glucose for its function to occur effectively and efficiently.
That is extremely important for me understanding. So, and then that's how the whole central nervous system comes into it, because the brain is nerves. So that's how they're starting to work together. Hey, okay. This is making a lot of sense, eh?
Awesome. Grant,
thank you.
Have it short
Cool.
here, right? You're going to have to catch up.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, write down on the group your 10 things you learned. I know you put it on the Facebook page, put it down in the WhatsApp group so we can all evaluate everybody's ideas on Saturday.
Okay, must I do it now?
Yeah, you can do it now, whenever you have a chance.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, pal. I appreciate it, eh?
Listen, that's what I'm here for.
And then from when must I start our online training again?